Greetings, kindred. Wishing you all a happy full moon. Yeah, it's pretty interesting full moon actually. So let's begin. So the full moon will reach its peak in Leo at 5 degrees on the 12th of February 2025 at 13:53 in the GMT time zone, at 8:53 in the EDT time zone, and on the 13th of February at 00:53 in the AEDT. So coming up to 1 o'clock in the morning for you guys in Australia. As I said, as the full moon reaches its peak, it'll be at 5 degrees in Leo. Now this is all about kind of shifting perspectives in a way, or shifting emotions. Do you know what I mean? There is a little bit of drama going on out there at the moment. Seems like the media are really busy again. But, straight off the cuff, let's talk about the moon in Leo first, actually. So this is a very emotionally proud moon. Leos do like a bit of the spotlight, but they also need to be appreciated. The one good thing about Leo is they're very entertaining. Their ruling planet is the sun, which is all about the conscience and, being the guiding light. But, Leo does tend to wear his heart on his sleeve. Like if we look at the constellation of Leo, we see that Regulus, his heart chakra, is right on his arm, on his sleeve. So that's where we get the saying, like, they wear their heart on their sleeve. So I feel this is quite relevant, this full moon, because this full moon, Leo, is definitely wearing his heart on his sleeve. Because right off the cuff, like I said, he's in a grand cross aspect with Uranus, the Sun, Ceres, and Mercury, Juno, the goddess Juno, and back to the moon. And then the oppositions is the Sun, Ceres, and Mercury in opposition to the moon. The Sun's always in opposition to the moon at a full moon. And then we have Uranus in opposition to both actually Juno and Vesta, although Vesta's the one Juno's the one we're taking into consideration here, because, she's at the corner of this grand cross here. With the moon in square to Uranus, this gives us a very vivid imagination, but also within that comes exceptional talent. But it can also be a bit narcissistic as well. My daughter actually laughs at me when I say narcissistic, because, it's one of those tongue-tying words, isn't it? But you get what I mean. This square also is very restless, and there's likely to be mood swings with that. Can also create a lot of health issues, natural catastrophes, domestic disruptions. Do you know what I mean? But this moon square Uranus wants to evolve, wants to break out the bubble. And then we have the Sun conjunct Ceres, first of all. Let's get into this little stellium right here, which is on the other corner. So the Sun in conjunction with Ceres, that can be quite an optimistic connection. That's all about raising confidence levels in an entertaining way, especially with the Leo moon. So, to uplift others' spirits, we might crack a joke or just be really optimistic about things. It's also about getting others to get into their self-power. The only thing is, others may not be in the right place for that. And with the Sun conjunct Mercury, it can come across as a little bit kind of dominating, especially with the Leonian energy, which can hinder growth and objectivity. So what it is with this Leo moon, I feel within this grand cross, is that there's a lack of self-awareness where the mind and ego are detached from the heart. So we may feel that we're acting in good faith or we're acting in good spirit, but there's other aspects to say that those that are really down are deeply, deeply wounded and they're not really seeing the funny side of things. But that Leonian energy can get very kind of offended by that. That's where they start to feel unappreciated because they are definitely doing it from a place of genuinity in most cases, but it's not always authentic. Grand crosses are very difficult aspects because, it's like we're going around this, even though it's a square, it feels like we are going around in circles. We always seem to end up in the same place. And with the moon in Leo in opposition to the sun, Ceres and Mercury, it can create a lot of irritation, especially in social relationships. Do you know what I mean? But also, there can be those that are a little bit petty with their complaints. But this is also brings to the surface like unconscious emotional patterns, distorted mindset. Sometimes we can't think straight with this aspect, with the moon in opposition to Mercury. But with the moon in opposition to Ceres, that's very much a push and pull energy. It's very hard for us to express our emotions, in a way that people can understand without feeling that there's an overly negative tone there. So the moon really is all about our emotional needs and how we react to things, where Ceres is about our physical needs, especially with Vesta being, in opposition to Uranus too, alongside Vesta. I wouldn't say they're in conjunction, but, they're still kind of occupying the same space. And Juno is very much involved in this Grand Cross, whereas Vesta is actually involved in this Kite, which is quite strong. So I do feel that Vesta's energy there is very relevant. And we can see that Vesta is at 5 degrees in Libra. So she's very much to-ing and fro-ing at the moment. It's very hard for her to make a decision or get direction, really, especially with this opposition with Uranus, because that's where the mood swings just start, playing with our minds, do we want this or do we want that? Where do we go? What way do we go? Uranus is in Aries at the moment, and Aries can tend to live in the past. So there could be like problems with letting go of the past in some way. But with Uranus in opposition to Juno, it is like a bolt of lightning. Uranus does tend to light up Juno. Juno's very loyal, very steadfast. So Uranus energy coming in, it's like a tug of war because Uranus wants to shift, whereas Juno wants to kind of stay put. So there is a compromise that is needed there, so there is a strong need for stability and security with this energy. It could be that our loyalties or our commitments actually get a shake up this full moon. But, as long as we're staying true to our core values, we need to go with our instincts. Do you know what I mean? We need to not allow ego to get in the way of reason. And, so there is this little bit of power struggle going on. So as I said, we've actually got 2 kites. One is double-sided, but we're going to go with the big one first. This one's a very kind of heavily built kite. But we do have the ascendant involved here. This is just for the UK. So it's Mars, who's in retrograde still in Gemini. Now, he comes out of retrograde soon. I have got a chart here for him, so we will be looking at that in a moment. But Mars is in trine to Saturn, who's still in Aquarius, but is now direct. in trine to Vesta, the goddess Vesta, who's at 5 degrees, and in trine back to Mars. Now, Mars in retrograde does slow things down a bit, but in Gemini, we can be a lot in our heads about the past. So this is where the past also, plays a part in this chart. So we've got Uranus in Aries, which is kind of like a bit stuck in the past because of Juno's energy here. But Mars is actually the ruler of Aries. So Mars being in retrograde in Gemini, and Gemini is all about the mind. It's all about our mentality, the way we communicate. So it very much is all about the head area. And with Mars retrograding backwards there, I would say that he's very much been living in the past throughout his retrograde here. And but he is about to go direct. And we're getting to, like I said, we're getting to that chart in a minute. It's quite an intense chart, actually. But, with Mars in trine to Saturn, this is all about purposeful action, and hard work. This trine does actually give us a lot of willpower and patience, a lot of precision, but it's also a very highly ambitious connection as well. But it's very much to do with military, the politics or authority. But, this aspect with Mars and Saturn, we've got a high tolerance when it comes to endurance. So, that's a trine. It's free-flowing. It is that air trine. So I would say, there's a lot of detachment there. So with, the moon in Leo, wearing his heart on his sleeve, we can be very much in our heads. But then we have Saturn, who's in trine to the goddess Vesta. And like I said, goddess Vesta is in opposition to Uranus as well. So Saturn in trine, this is all about our hardships, really, and how they fuel our kind of need to get active in a mission kind of sense. Do you know what I mean? This is all about survival instincts. But they are, we are in our maturity. We are in our self-responsibility with this aspect. It's all about building solid foundations that is based on spiritual strength. So there is a spiritual element there where it's known that we need to get into that frame of mind. We need to get into more spiritual faith, really. Do you know what I mean? To uplift us, because I don't feel we can be uplifted by others at present. I don't think there's such a deep lack of trust globally. Do you know what I mean? There's just been so much to-ing and fro-ing with information, with exposure. There's just so much stuff that's gone on where we just don't know what to believe anymore. Or we do have our own belief structures, but we're finding that's not gelling with the people around us so much. So there can be a little bit of conflict there. But overall, I would say this Kite is really pushing us to get into our blind faith, if you like. So with Vesta in trine to Mars, who's in retrograde, this is about our passions, our ambitions, and they're flowing kind of nicely. We have faith in that. But actions do speak louder than words. So we need to devote ourselves to being protectors, do you know what I mean, of our land, of our family, of, those that are suffering. We do need to be a defender and a protector for those kind of people. And then with Uranus at the top of the Kite, we have Uranus in sextile to Saturn. So this is where we can push ideas forward in a more practical way, be more responsible and constructive when it comes to solutions and problems. But, this is good for governments or businesses. And then we have Uranus in sextile to Mars in retrograde, which is, very quick decision making, making actions with like strength and courage, accomplishing unique things. But the only thing is, we can be too strong or too forceful with that energy, except for Mars is in retrograde, which does slow that pace down a little bit. So I would say that we can all act within our wisdom, but there is a nervous energy that comes with that. And with Uranus in opposition, so what's the obstacle to all this? Well, Uranus in opposition to the goddess Vesta, like we just spoke about. That's like I said, being pulled in two different directions, We've got really strong humanitarian values, but we may not be focused enough to act upon them. So this is where actions speak louder than words, There's a lot of distractions. We can tend to go around in circles or jump in and out of groups, do you know what I mean? Or rush too quickly into groups only to find that we don't really align with them that well. So this is all about it being an individual, basically. It's all about having your own opinion and attracting those towards you and working equally with those, because like with the energies I'm seeing, there is a good chance of us working together as a unit. But, humanity always feel there needs to be some kind of leadership, or in any group there has to be a chairman or a leader in some form or way. Whereas really it's only going to work if it's equal or everyone has their turn at the table. Maybe that's the best way to go about it. And if we're not in agreement, then we have to agree to disagree or work independently. So there's many of us out here that prefer to work independently, and we collaborate with others, we network with others, but we are solo on our own mission. So this second Kite is, so we have Uranus in trine to Pallas, who's conjunct Pluto, in trine to the South Node, in trine back to Uranus in Aries. See now, like I said, Mars, the ruler of Aries, has been in retrograde, so he's been living in the past a lot. The South Node is all about the past or, repercussions from the past. It's very kind of like a Saturn energy in a way. But also it's our comfort zone. It's the knowledge we already hold, which is valuable. But sometimes we need to come out of this comfort zone. And the reason why it's difficult for many of us to do that right now is because we do have the Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. And even though she's nowhere near the South Node, with the Virgoan energy, with the Black Moon Lilith placed there, it is all about, being afraid to step forward through fear of failure, or not being confident enough. Because Virgo can be very self-critical and nothing's ever good enough at times. Do you know what I mean? And that's a shadow of the Virgoan energy, and the Black Moon Lilith is kind of emphasizing that shadow. And with the South Node in Virgo, I would definitely say that, some of us are feeling a little bit uncomfortable about stepping outside the box. Although, in saying that, well, let's start with Uranus, actually. So Uranus is in trine to the goddess Pallas. Now, Uranus in trine to the goddess Pallas can give us really good ideas and solutions, really good thinking ability, especially when it comes to thinking outside the box. Because if we think outside the box, then we have more perspectives to like analyze and consider. But it's here where we need to trust our intuition. If we're feeling uncomfortable with a situation, then we need to get out of that situation and spend some time alone to really grasp what it is we're not comfortable with in that. because it doesn't really align with our own values or morals and principles. And I think that's what we need to focus on this full moon, so we can break free from patterns that are not good for humanity or for the world, and, come up with better solutions really for the way forward. But then with Pallas, the goddess Pallas in trine to the South Node, thinking outside the box, which gives us space to view things from a different perspective and see a clearer picture of what needs to be done. This is where we, again, need to follow our intuition and, avoid that procrastination. If we're feeling the urge that we need to shift and we need to get out of what we know for that fresh perspective, then we need to do that. So I think it is with all that's going on in the media right now. I just feel some of us are kind of getting clarity. The new moon was all about clarity. I feel now like there's a shift in perception going on, but we mustn't speak before we think. And the moon in Leo, sometimes we can do that, or we can be a little bit dominating with our kind of impulsivity. Do you know what I mean? So we just need to watch out for that. So on top of this particular Kite, we have the North Node in sextile to Uranus. And then we have the North Node in sextile to the goddess Pallas, who's conjunct Pluto. And I'm going to talk about this conjunction in a minute. It's the North Node, but it's also Neptune. So let's talk about Neptune first. So with Neptune in sextile to Uranus, that is a generational aspect that came into effect recently. And this is all about expansion of spiritual consciousness. It's a time of evolution, but that evolution is normally triggered by sudden events, but it also creates a lot of growing pains. So, even though there's expansion of consciousness, sometimes facing up to that consciousness is very uncomfortable because we're facing up to universal truths, and I feel this full moon is all about that. There's a lot of bubbling to the surface of inner truths. And with this Pallas conjunct Pluto aspect here, this is really deep. It's all about self-discovery, hidden truths that come to the surface. Like I said, we're being pushed there anyway. So that Pluto energy is very, very strong at the moment. So with the North Node in sextile to the goddess Pallas, this can be rational and intuitive, can give us really good insights and encouragement to move forward to achieve our goals. And with Juno in the sextile to the goddess Pallas, we can be very committed in following through on our goals. We can also be it's very motivational. It's a very motivational aspect. And with the goddess Juno in sextile to the South Node, this can be like a shift in energy as well. It's not asking us to be loyal to anybody else other than ourselves. And I think, that is the one thing we need to maintain, is our own inner strength, our own personal viewpoints, but always be open-minded to shift and changes around that. And I feel that's what's happening in this full moon, to be honest. I feel there's a lot of shifts going on in consciousness, in awakened consciousness, not the subconscious mind. I just feel there's new information coming in, and it's not coming in just from the media. It's not the media that's enlightening us. It's our inner child, our soul. It's triggering kind of new knowledge. It's making us take note of new knowledge. So, this is where we can really get a shake up with this Juno opposition. Uranus, can really shake us up. And it can also shake up the earth as well. Been seeing a little bit of that going on lately. So overall, I would say, deep breathing techniques, definitely. There is a lot of hype, a lot of restless energy occurring this full moon. Yeah, but full moons are all about making way for the new. And so I would say over the next 2 weeks, just take it easy, because there is a lot of narratives out there right now. There's a lot of energy flying around. We do need to be uplifted, but we also need to, just watch out for those that are struggling a little bit with the change, with the new information, with their own self-enlightenment. And with that, I want to get into the Mars going direct chart. So Mars retrograde will end on the 24th of February at 2:03 in the GMT time zone. So please convert that to your own time zone. And as Mars retrograde ends, he will be at 16 degrees in Gemini. Now, as Mars does go direct, he will be in a T-square and a kite formation. And these will be the two grand aspects he's involved in. And, it can be pretty intense. Mars in Gemini going direct, it's all about us being in our head. But it can also be a very aggressive energy. And I think where he's been going backwards for a little while now, I just feel he's very frustrated because Mars does not do well in retrograde. So also with Mars in Gemini, it can be kind of an argumentative energy. And we've seen that as well with Mars in retrograde in Gemini. There has been a lot of argumentative energy out there, very criticizing energy, which has created a lot of irritability and a lack of patience, especially in the media, which has been at the forefront of this Mars in retrograde cycle that we've just been going through. There can be a lack of patience there. And obviously the media, and especially the critics in media, would have been at the forefront of this energy and still will be until he moves out of Gemini. There has been changes in the media as well. But on the whole, Mars and Gemini can be quite a sarcastic and rude energy. Do you know what I mean? And I feel that strongly, especially with this T-square here. Now, with this T-square, it is actually quite deep as well, because we have Chiron and the Black Moon Lilith in opposition. Now, throughout 2024, the Black Moon was involved in almost every event chart I did. So it's so refreshing this year just to see her popping in and out as she normally does, because even though her energy is to enlighten us at the end of the day, for evolution, it's also a very, very difficult energy to deal with. It's very dark energy initially. So we do have this opposition with Chiron in the Black Moon, which is a very, very depressing energy, very painful, very restricting on our personal growth. You know what I mean? We could be very much stuck in old patterns of pain. Do you know what I mean? Like with Chiron in Pisces, it's very emotional, so it could go back to childhood, especially with the goddess Ceres being involved, and she has been. There's a T-square aimed towards the goddess Ceres with Uranus here in opposition to the goddess Juno. Creating this T-square towards the sun and the goddess Ceres in Aquarius. So this opposition, I mean, it can be very sacrificial, but it can also be, an energy where we just want out. We just want out of this world, out of all the darkness. But in square to Mars, this is like anger brewing underneath the surface. Like there's a lot of toxic emotions bubbling up underneath the surface there. It can be a very eruptive energy if we don't release that anger and that resentment in a constructive way. We must not let it fester, because if we're feeling pain and it's either do or die, then, we really need to find an outlet so we can get into a better frame of mind or a better space. So there's a lot of healing needed as Mars goes direct. So, when's that again? 24th of Feb. So coming up towards the end of February, we really need to watch out of what's going on in the world around that time, because I feel it's a very triggering energy that's going to be going on as Mars goes direct. Now, with Mars at 16 degrees, it could be a good thing for certain eruptions. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just hoping that these eruptions don't get out of hand. And this can be kind of like to do with the earth tremors as well as like, societies or global movements or just people in general. And then, we have Mars, like I said, involved in this kite aspect with the moon at the top of the kite. So with Mars in trine to Mercury, there can be, again, an abundance of mental energy, especially since Mars is in Gemini. And it's a very restless energy that needs to be controlled. Do you know what I mean? It's very dramatic, very forceful, especially when it comes to speech. So again, I just feel that we just need to watch out for what's going on around this time, because, the trines flow very easily. That's why I feel this energy is going to be very triggering. Now, with Mars in trine to Saturn, now this could be something that does give us a little bit of patience, like where we can get a little bit more shrewd, but it does really benefit more political, governmental or corporate organizations or even the military. But it's all about serious responsibilities and stamina, strength, high endurance. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what's going to be going on there, but it does look like, things are getting a little bit out of hand around about Mars going direct at the end of the month. Now, with Mercury in trine to the goddess Vesta, this is like, I'd say it's like a preacher aspect. There's a strong spiritual connection there when it comes to enlightenment. I think this would be a good time, actually, if we are holding on to resentment or if we are feeling deep pain and we're finding it difficult to express it or open up about it, writing it down and burning it and letting it, fly out with the wind. There is an exercise for that. For anyone that wants that exercise, just contact me. But it is very simple. You just write down all your woes on a bit of paper or how you're really feeling. And then you say a prayer, burn it somewhere safe. But anyway, it's all about letting go. It's all about sacrificing. So Saturn in trine to Vesta, it kind of compels us to get on our mission, to be responsible and committed to it. And uniting with others, it's all about grounding and connection. When it comes to the divine, we've got to ground and connect, get into our faith, get into our spirituality, because I feel like that's been knocked out of a lot of us. Do you know what I mean? And with Vesta in trine to Mars, this is all about, again, action speaks louder than words. This is about trying to find balance. It's probably good for lawyers and barristers, for people that want to speak up, when it comes to justice. But also, this is like, it's not the legalese, it's like common law based on morals and principles. That's what I feel this energy can offer us. Do you know what I mean? And common law is just based on common sense, like when it comes to our morals and principles. So like I said, on the top of the kite, we have the moon. The moon's in sextile to Vesta, and the moon's in sextile to Saturn here. Now, Saturn is conjunct Mercury as well. So that's why, it's all about the mind. It's all about how we're speaking, communicating, how we listen as well. So with, Saturn conjunct Mercury in Aquarius, we can actually be getting divine inspiration in, connecting, enlightenment, because that Saturn energy will actually give us a little bit of grounding. So with the moon in sextile to the goddess Vesta, this is like a divine mission. It's very inspirational, very spiritual. It's all about serving others, And with the moon in sextile to Mercury, this gives us a good memory or a good mental ability where we can put things into actions. It also brings harmony into family connections. And we're able to connect emotionally with others. So, that is a really good aspect when the kite is up high. We can get into that Aquarian universal consciousness, connecting with that divinity, that divine energy, where the soul connects to the higher self and creates that connection with the divine, so there could be Kundalini experiences that go along with that. But with the moon here at the top of the kite, in opposition to Mars in Gemini, who's at the bottom of the kite, this is the landing. This is the obstacle, this opposition. And, that can be very, very complex and deep-rooted. There's definitely a need to maintain self-worth and self-confidence with that energy. Because we've also got Mars in square to Chiron, remember this, it's a T-square, isn't it? So it's going to take a lot for us to stay in our spiritual kind of mindset. Maybe that's why I feel that when Mars goes direct, there could be a triggering event that's going to cause a great deal of stress to people or some people. So I really do feel there's a humanitarian issue coming up. It could be a little bit of a crisis that happens, but I see people coming together to help, to aid, to assist. And I just think we need to just watch out for that. But anyway, Kindred, I'm going to leave it there. And as always, I'm sending you peace and much love. Take care.